going down the list here, could you tell us or compare some of the best experience you've had in DevOps versus versus the worst ones? What kind of stood out about them?
Okay, best experiences. I once went to a company and uh, I had to talk to, they hired me, they liked what I had to say. And when I went there, this was their production deployment model. They had build boxes that they checked the source out on, and actually not just build boxes, but it oftentimes happened on developer machines. And they would build everything and then check that into source control. Then they would log into their production boxes and get that source control and restart their web servers. So their deployment process was checking all their binaries into source control, which hurt my feelings. And then and this could have happened on a dev's machine, and then logging into the production boxes and downloading that source for that branch. And that was their production deployment. Uh, I did not know when I got hired that this was what they were doing. And I immediately got to work fixing that. I had to rip their entire products apart to get them down to base code and get them into using components. And it was a great project, I guess, because I had plenty of work to do, and they liked what I was doing. The dev managers and stuff understood why I needed to do that because their production deployments used to take hours because there was always problems. They would spend from Wednesday starting at 10 p.m. till 5 a.m. the next morning. I got them down to 20-minute deployments that only one person had to be there for. To 20-minute deployments that they could actually trust. That was
Uh-huh.
automatically tested.
Correct.
Tested by outside sources automatically when it's deployed. Great. That's a great feeling. So I guess that's maybe a good and a bad. My worst experience was going into that, but the best experience is when you like at the tax software company, when I told the QA people, okay, if you want a new build of the product, you just hit that button in TFS right there. They're like, wait, what? We just have to hit this button and it comes out in 6 minutes. It's
Yeah.
amazing how you get so used to dealing with what you had as a crutch that when someone comes along and just fixes it for you and makes it a much better process,
Hmm.
the gratefulness that comes through. Devs no longer have to be bothered to build, or the QA people can just hit a button and it builds and it comes to them, and they know exactly where to go to get that. Uh, and then the product owner, when you say, yeah, you can trust the deployments because it runs all these automated tests, and if something goes wrong, we're notified immediately.
Yeah,
Uh,
that sense of security.
Making people happy.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah, and for yourself, I think it's like cleaning up, right? The way you started with that was not really a good process and ended up with something so much efficient. I think that's really for oneself. It's really important, right?
Exactly. I
Kind of
mean, you
like
can
a
feel
challenge.
proud. You can feel proud about what you're creating, and
Yeah.
I try to do the best I can for everybody I work for to make sure that they're happy with the product they get.
Hmm.
I'm sure you do, man. We talked about the current position of DevOps, but how does it look as to job offers, right? It's from my point of view, it's pretty much trending. I know there's a high demand. So what is your point of view there?
The technology that we use, I'm actually agnostic to whatever technology the company wants to use, as long as we're
Hmm.
doing what's best for them. Like I said, my first job was mainframe assembler programming. I have 17 instructions to do everything I need to do, and that's it. I'm loading into registers and using memory directly. Was that the best thing to use at the time? No, absolutely not. But it's what I had to use at the time. If company wants to use Java right now, perfectly fine. If they want to use .NET, great. I will adapt to whatever the company thinks is best for them and what the architects thinks are best for them. My goal is basically just to make sure it's good enough so that we can automate those processes. Now, if they
Hmm.
want to use something that's crazy and we have to do a lot of stuff manually, I'll probably step in and say, could we actually go down this road and do it better? I'm not trying to take an architect's role, though I wouldn't mind being a cloud architect just for, it fits in with DevOps really well
Hmm.
because we can determine what might be best in the cloud for the actual how the products are going to work in there. But as far as the technology that's used to develop the code and develop the websites and develop the servers, I'm perfectly fine with going whichever technology that the developers want to use. Now I'm a lot better off with .NET because that's what I programmed in for 10 years. But if you want to be on a Linux machine and using straight up Java or whatever, hey, I'm perfectly adaptable there too.
I think any one of us is like that, right? Dynamic, getting used to, and we just like that challenge, learning more.
We're always retraining.
So
yeah.
So another question we were kind of wanting to ask you, John, is kind of just like on the old style versus the new style. So could you tell us a little bit of your thoughts on bare metal deployments versus cloud deployments, and which one you might like better? And
yeah, because security is huge, and that's what you're talking about when you're talking about bare metal to cloud. Security is the main thing you're worried about. If I can make sure I have my servers in house, I know that I can protect them. Well, guess what? No, actually, your endpoints are just as open as they are in the cloud now. The cloud, both AWS, Azure, Google Code, they have gotten better about allowing you to really maintain your network. And if I have a server sitting in the basement there, depending on how open it is, because I have to receive communication from whatever service is heading it to, like say the tax software company, our entire first floor was a server room. And we had specific servers for deploying to. But then they started morphing into doing ESX and doing virtual machines. And, and the next step of that is to go up to Azure or to go to AWS. They have all been certified by the government, by the military, and by health concerns to be able to use the cloud. And if those guys have certified, if the government has certified it's good enough, then it is good enough. But then it's up to us to use it correctly, because I could sit there and make a bunch of AWS servers, but they'd be just as open to anybody else as if I had, an open up socket in my server sitting down in my basement.
Got to lock it all down.
Between the two, I really don't care. I can spin up machines. And I can lock them down, and I can make sure that they are secure based upon my processes and what the company is expecting and what the company's security team is expecting. I will develop in the direction that they want to go. Do I prefer the cloud? I actually do now. I was pushing code through OS 390 to a mainframe computer, and Equifax was as locked down as you could be, but we all know what happened to them a few years ago. So, and they were not in the cloud at that time. So it all is all about your own security and taking care of your own servers. And however you do that, be it local machines or in the cloud, is up to you.
I do have a follow-up. What might be like one of the trickiest security holes you might have had to patch or kind of deal with?
Definitely with cloud computing, I think AWS has gotten a little better about it. Their new machines are basically extremely locked down. So here's the problem we have. There's two extremes. I mean, you can have a setup where nobody can get anything anywhere. Well, that also hinders us from actually being able to get done what we need to get done. Customers need to be able to reach your site. So if port 80 is not open, guess what? People are not going to see your site. So it's tricky finding that balance of saying, okay, we're going to have the security set up in our cloud machines, and they're only going to be reachable by the people that need to be reached. Well, if you don't open up exactly what needs to be opened up, and you don't save that in code, like I can sit there and go into the AWS console and say, oh, okay, in the security group, open up that port. Well, if I do that, I've now screwed myself, because when I do my production deployment, that port's not going to be open. I need to make sure I do it through code, and that code is actually checked into source control. Everything should be checked to source control. Don't do the stuff by hand and say, oh, I'll get to it later, because guess what? 9 times out of 10, you forgot about it and you didn't get to it later. So we need to make changes to our infrastructure in code the same way we do actual code. And by doing that, we know that port's going to be open when I promote this infrastructure to production. And that's the most important part. Don't do stuff by hand. Automate everything.
For sure. I think we've that's a theme for this interview at least.
One more, which I think you kind of, one more from our team members. You kind of have your point of view, and I know this is not going to be a direct answer of this or the other, but they're actually asking if who makes a better DevOps, right? People coming from development or people coming from the operations side? What's your take?
Unfortunately, I mean, obviously I might be biased, but the truth of the matter is we are developers. As DevOps, we are creating code. We are creating the framework of deploying code. And so it makes more sense to me that you have somebody who has the analytical mind of a developer, somebody who has the step-by-step processes of, allocating memory, unallocating memory. Maybe you guys don't have to worry about that, but we have to be able to think of the analytical mind. When I'm a operations guy, I'm sitting there going, okay, I know servers. I know how to throw together. I can pop up a Linux box. I know how to wire up all the necessary networking and stuff. And that's important, of course, and that is extremely important. But to me, DevOps is developer first, operations second. It's in the name. So we need to be able to have that structured mind that says, I have think of it like a computer. How many times did we do all those exercises at school where we had to think like a computer? And I have to think like a computer when I'm sitting there saying, okay, I want to flesh out my infrastructure. How do I do that in a process that makes sense, step by step by step?
Thanks for the honesty.
So I have one more question. If you could rename DevOps, what would you name it?
Rename? Oh, I'm not allowed to curse, am I? I'm from the military. Actually, no. Speaking to my Spanish friends over in Madrid, I actually, and I hope not to offend them, but I actually would call us Pontifex, bridge builder. We are ones who bridge dev to QA. We bridge QA to production. We are the glue that holds them together, and hopefully we create smooth pathways, not rocky bridges that are, a little shaky, or not, light bridges that can't handle the load. We create strong connections between all those groups, the product owners, the product managers, the vice presidents who want to see reports. They want to see the information that these systems are up and running, and they also want to see the reports on how much we're spending in the cloud to make sure it's worth it. Did we save money by going down this process? DevOps touches all those places, and we have to build the bridges that bring these teams together.
Bridge building, like it. You'd really fit into Pittsburgh here. got quite a
I was military brat. I grew up all over the place.
So I just wanted to ask also about the future of DevOps. Where do you see it going? Do you see any emerging type of technologies? As I said, you mentioned that you've grown into like the cloud. Do you think there's anything that's going to be groundbreaking, or we still don't know that, and we'll have to see?
It's tough to see where we're going to go, but I do think that we're going to be offloading a lot of the processing that we do. Right now, we still use our machines to build locally. We still use our machines to test locally. And what happens to my machine? It gets a bunch of junk on it. I have a bunch of stuff installed on it. When I build locally, because I do build the code locally, I already have all the NuGet packages. And this is something at a previous company that we had thought about doing. Why are we using machines locally? Why do I have to have that laptop? We have such connectivity. We have so many ways to reach the cloud now. Why is my machine not up in the cloud so that I can go anywhere and work on my machine? Oh, there's something wrong with my machine. I installed a bunch of stuff I didn't need. Blow it away, make a new one. Okay? The fact that I can sit there and just blow machines and I can spin them up in 6 seconds. Azure DevOps has hosted pipelines. They are build machines that do not exist, and they literally get spun up in seconds. Your code gets put on there, it builds it, it deploys it, it throws the machine away. And I think that we should start looking in that direction. I hope that we go in that direction. Why do I have to have this $2,000 laptop with that much processing power? How about I have just this little machine like my phone that can easily reach out to AWS, and I can run a 16-core, 128 gig RAM machine on my phone, which could have a keyboard and mouse and screen hooked up to it. So if we could offload our processing and offload our machines that we even develop on and test on and work with to the cloud, That way I don't have to have as hardy a system as I do. Except
I hope you're right.
That's a very
even
cool
that's going
take.
to the cloud, because you have gaming that's now happening in the cloud. The only things being
Yeah.
served to you
Yeah.
is your video output.
Yep.
So what would be the considerations? Probably, I mean, definitely network connection. We had to make sure that it's more reliable for everybody, and maybe cost in that. Or what do you think is stopping us from getting there?
Security.
Security.
People
Yep.
don't want to put their personal stuff up in the cloud. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
We really, really need concrete security. And then, maybe then people would trust it more. Now, that being said, most of the people do throw their personal information up in the cloud all the dang time, with Facebook, Twitter, everything. So it's funny where they're willingly throwing their information out there. But then, if they say, oh, well, we're going to store your entire computer and everything on it in the cloud, I don't know about that.
It's all about the context, isn't it, with people? Gotta make
perception.
sure it's something they're comfortable with.
It's about perception.
But yeah, I like that idea, kind of just getting rid of the entire concept of local development and making it my cloud.
At the time,
local
they were called
environment.
internet machines. Like Cisco was really trying to push it. They were just called internet machines. And it hasn't gone anywhere, but I think that there's a possibility that it could.
Oh, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for being our
another time.
pilot interview subject.
I hope that I did okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Absolutely great.